Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside Scoop. This is a loss prevention magazine podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Hoover, and very happy to be here today with Eddie Padgett, who just recently made the leap from HSI federal to private, which is always interesting. So, Eddie, tell us a little bit about your background before you got to HSI. I saw you had a little retail background too. You've got kind of an interesting background.
I did. Yep. I started in retail when I was young and worked my way up to management. Um, had an opportunity to leave there and get into law enforcement. So I did that. I worked just local patrol, traffic things, into investigations over the years, ultimately landing on a task force with Homeland Security investigations, a financial crimes task force. And my group specifically was tasked with organized retail crimes and kind of everything that revolved around that, the financial aspect, credit cards, gift card scams, those sort of things. So for at least the last probably 5 years or so, that was specifically what I was working on.
Yeah. So I know in our pre-call, you and I talked, and you definitely sound like you've been bitten by the bug. It can be exciting and fun to work or see cases. And I know you kind of have a knack for making connections and partnerships. So we're gonna dig into all that good stuff. So talk to me a little bit about why you decided to go into the private sector.
Um, I I had an opportunity to move to the private sector. I was really passionate about specifically retail crimes, and the whole aspect of it, from the loss prevention side of it, kind of mitigating risks, to the reactive side. I liked all of it. All the law enforcement aspect of it is a lot of it's just reactive investigations, which is fun and I like it. But there's opportunities on the private sector that just a lot more to approach kind of a broader part of it. And like I said, I just had a really found out a really big passion for it, and so kind of could narrow my scope to that.
Yeah. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I know back in my day, because I was thinking about going into law enforcement, I realized that the pay might be a little bit bigger in the private sector. So,
It definitely is. It's definitely all the law enforcement are underpaid
yeah,
across all the levels, really. So
yeah, very stressful job, very sometimes thankless job. Thank you for doing it for so many years, and I'm glad you were able to gain all these experiences. I know you and I had talked about sort of your rookie story. You want to tell us about your rookie story from Walmart and Kmart?
yes, so that was when I was a rookie. That was kind of my first introduction into shoplifting. Somehow during my training, I managed to avoid any shoplifting calls with my training officer. So I was released on my own and got the typical call of two shoplifters detained at the local Walmart. And so I'm on my way, and I call my partner, and I was like, "Hey, I actually don't know what I'm supposed to do here when I get there."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, it's fine. I'll meet you there. Show you what to do." He'd been around for 10 years or so already, and so I pull up, walk in, partner grabs the receipt, from the loss prevention guy. Um, he's like, "All right, load them up in your car," and he's meet me across the street at Kmart parking lot. And I was like, "All right." So I put them in the car, drive across the highway, get out in the Kmart parking lot, and we open the door, let them go, yell at them, tell them not to come back to Walmart, just never come back, and send them on their way. So
Mhm.
a little while, that's how I handled shoplifting calls until somebody else that knew better went with me, and I was like, "Don't worry, I got this." And they saw what I did, and so kind of learned from that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I got to believe that there's especially from my experience working, in loss prevention, I've seen it myself. I'm just wondering why you guys chose Kmart. Did you have something against Kmart?
It was across the highway. They didn't call as much. It was a good
Oh,
little drop off point for them. They could separate their ways.
yeah, that's hysterical. Yeah, I'm sure that it happens probably to this day a lot. but yeah, I know from there the learning I'm sure continued. So were you able to partner up with some good AP professionals back in the beginning that sort of
So
gave you their side?
it took a while to get there. And I did everything aside from retail, violent crimes, got into drugs right before narcotic work, right before I started into retail.
Mhm.
And I remember years ago, the first time that I met like an actual retail investigator, not just loss prevention. Was helping out with basically another kind of shoplifting call, and these people showed up that were investigators, and I was like, holy cow, they're more than just your local like big box person that just stopped somebody, at the door. Kind of
Mhm.
what I was used to seeing. These people had, backgrounds, education, interview techniques, and they were, a lot of them conducted surveillance. And so talking to them and realize they already had an entire case file built on these specific people that we had. Um, I loved it then, and we had a great group around Charlotte that really got into it, and everything from like over the counter medicines, pharmacies to the uh, like Lowe's, Home Depot type hardware stores, things like that. So we had a really good group that worked together with law enforcement and the retail partners. We had kind of our own little task force that we formed. So
That's amazing. Sometimes, it's those informal groups that are really effective. I'm a big fan of the Orcas. And I know you and I have talked about the Corca group, which is excellent. But sometimes it's the smaller informal ones that are really effective as well.
we I really like Corca. I've been going to it for several years now. We presented one of the cases that was actually featured in Loss Prevention magazine. We did kind of a case study for it at one of the Corcas a few years ago. So it's pretty neat.
Is that the King Mountain case?
Yes, yep. Kings
Yes.
Mountain. That was one of the first like kind of bigger cases that we did where we actually got to like a second level fence. It was pretty high up, lots of money involved, a lot of organization, things like that.
Awesome. Well, before we get into like your specific cases, because I know I want to talk about that, I want to sort of back up and talk about your time in narcotics. And it sounds like you got to be very good at cultivating informants. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm super curious about how that works.
So for decades, that's been the one of the standards for kind of how the operate like narcotics investigations operate is you catch people with drugs, or you find people that want to snitch as what other people, but become a confidential source or an informant. And it was just really common. And once I got into the retail world, I found that that wasn't as common. There was nobody in our area that was really utilizing people as actual informants. Of course, there were lots of interviews being conducted, things like that, but we were able to use the informants that were caught shoplifting, things like that. We worked with the prosecutors to offer leniency on their side, or complete lack of charging. Since since I was able to pair with the retailers themselves, since a lot of times they were the victims, of the crime, they were able to say, hey, we'll be able to forgive this one. We recovered that all the assets, and so being able to use those people as informants to actually go and make purchases. We have a statute in North Carolina where we operated a lot that if you use like law enforcement agent or somebody acting as an agent, such as the informants and stuff, to sell what the other people believe is stolen goods. One of those agents, or one of the charge for that. So we're able to use that statute to get to a lot of shoppers, a lot of fences.
Mhm.
It really grew. I know the first time a lot of informants work for money, especially on the drug side, things like that. Same way, the first time I had an informant that was going to go buy stolen over the counter medicine, and I, bring back a big box of um, Allegra and things like that as evidence to the office and tell people I paid somebody to do it. Everybody was kind of looking at me sideways when you come from, normally bringing in a gun or drugs or something like that. But the
Mhm.
dollar value is still there, and many times or most of the times, our retail cases, the dollar amounts outweighed the drugs,
For
a lot
sure.
of times.
Yeah. So just a weird question, but what makes a good informant? What are like the traits of a good informant?
So a lot of where you start with are the boosters or or shoppers.
Hmm.
A lot of those are self-admitted drug addicts, and if you can find one that is not on drugs, that
Yeah.
really helps. But just somebody that listens, that's probably the biggest key, is if they can just listen to what you tell them, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of control. There's a lot of, you have to give them a lot of guidance. There's a lot of do's and don'ts and things like that. So finding somebody that listens, and on the very bottom level, people that have transportation, a cell phone, some way to communicate, something like that, or just, which you would think would be common things, but a lot of times they're not at that
I
level.
don't
So
know. No, drug addicts, when they're seriously addicted, they're not the most dependable,
that's,
so
yeah,
I
absolutely.
would think it'd be hard to build trust both ways. So when you're interacting with this informant and you're trying to get them on board, how do you build that trust with them?
I try to, I'm honest with them. I think that
Yeah.
carries a lot of weight. Law enforcement, when you act as law enforcement, you legally, they can lie to people. Um,
Yeah, which I'm not a fan of, by the way, but
Right. Yeah, I don't love that. I expected to be able to trust them, that they would do what I said and stuff. So
hmm.
I wanted them to be honest with me. So I was honest with them. I would shoot them straight. Just be relatable. Try not to talk down to look down on them, or at least where they feel that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, you want to, as I say, you kind of want to be friends with them. Obviously they're, in a different position, and you're not an actual, you're not going to go and hang out at the bar or something like that with them. But they're
Mhm.
people. A lot of them are in bad situations, make really bad choices. But instead of treating the crime or whatever it is that they do as some taboo type of the worst thing in the world, just being able to talk to them about it, like, it's because for them it's every day. A lot of them grew up watching, mom or dad and brothers and sisters do the same thing, and that's what they
Yeah.
do. So it's not an abnormal thing to them. So just being relatable and talking to them like they're a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, I love that. On the opposite side, when we talk about interviewing employees internally in retail, it's sort of the same thing. We have to build that rapport, build the trust, in a short time frame when you're doing the interview. So I think that there's a lot of transferable skills. Like people who really excel at doing internal investigations and interviews would probably be really good at cultivating informants, I would think.
Absolutely. And one of the things I do is teach an interview class specifically for that, and it's not as much as on the mythology, like the methods of, like, I've had the Wicklander Zulowski training and things, which is great. You carry some of that over, but
Hmm.
a lot of it, but it's not as much the method of interviewing and talking to them as, like, what you ask, how you ask it, things like that. There are a lot of key differences. Same fundamentals, but different approach to those people.
Yeah, yeah. I like that you're bringing your own perspective and your own history to the training. That's great. Um, so with the informants, I know, like I said, you're building that trust. You're talking them through what they've got to do. But then how do you keep them on track? Because again, a lot of these are drug addicted folks. How do you keep them coming back and doing what they're supposed to do? Is it just the trust that keeps running through it, or how does that work?
Oh, a lot of them, either there's generally, when it's on the law enforcement side and they're signed up and we're working with law enforcement, consulting them, or when I was doing it for them, there's two factors. They're either working off a charge, they've been caught shoplifting, and they're working
Okay.
to for leniency for that, and that's a big motivator,
Sure.
or they're getting paid, and obviously that's why they're stealing in the first place.
Hmm.
It's for money. So if you can do that, and some people, occasionally run into people that genuinely want to do better, and a lot of them, really, I've found, like, once you approach them as they're the consultant to you, and you kind of get them in that mindset, a lot of them get excited to share everything they've done. They will tell you how they stole, when they stole, you learn so much by talking to them, and like I said, I frame it as they're, which they are. I mean, they're teaching me. I'm learning, you know, how they do what they do, why they do it, when they do it. And when you frame it like that to them, a lot of them, they get excited and they just want to tell me
Mhm.
everything. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think the key is probably finding that person who's not too far gone. I think about the folks that are on the fentanyl and the really hardcore, even the newer drugs that are coming out. I'm thinking, wow, those folks probably would not be the right choice for this.
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
one of the things you do have to. You got to evaluate and filter out the people, because a lot of first getting into it, you get a lot of people that make a lot of false promises. They
sure.
just they don't want to go to jail, or they just really want the money, or they want to seem like they know more than they do.
Hmm.
After you do it a while, it becomes easier to pick up on the people that are kind of just blowing smoke, or
Yeah. So what kinds of reasons have you heard from the offenders, like that they give you the reasons why they steal and get involved with the ORC?
So the biggest justification that I've heard from the one of the higher level fences that was making anywhere from 50 to 100,000 a month in
Wow.
stolen goods, down to homeless, uh, drug addict, strung out people. Uh,
Mhm.
they One thing that's been kind of across the board is they don't feel bad about stealing from corporations or big box stores, and they kind of justify it as, well, they have millions or billions of dollars. And I've heard a lot of them even say, I would never steal from somebody, but I
Mm,
don't
okay.
mind stealing from, whatever store. Like, I don't mind, running into Walmart or Lowe's or wherever. They've got plenty of money. So a lot of people kind of justify it that way. Uh,
Hmm.
Obviously, a lot of them do it to fund narcotics. I mean, that's been the biggest thing that I've seen at the shopper or booster. They call them shoppers, and the fences and things that uh,
Yeah,
we
that
call
sounds
them.
more less criminal, I guess. I'm just a shopper.
Right, right, yes. So that's kind of the whys to fund that. There are ones that do it just it's easy money.
Hmm.
Talking with them, a lot of them know about jurisdictions for law enforcement. Um, a lot of the shopper or booster level ones end up functioning in somewhat of a group. A lot of them have what I would consider the equivalent to a supervisor, which would be somebody with a driver's license and a car,
Okay.
that would be willing to drive them around. A lot of times that person doesn't go in the store thinking that they're minimizing their risk, and they'll have one or two people that go in and steal for them.
Mm,
But they'll do it for just, it's easy money, and so they know about jurisdictions, and so they know it's less likely to get caught as they cross into different counties, different cities, different states. And if they do get caught, it's usually a shoplifting. It's a misdemeanor, very low bond, or sign their own bond, um, that type of thing. A lot of times it's not connected to all these other thefts, and they're not hit with these organized retail crimes or conspiracies. Uh,
hmm.
and a majority at that level have a criminal history, and so they don't mind going to jail as much. They've been to jail, so it's not quite as a big deal to them.
Three
So
hots and a cot. They're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay.
the reward is more than the risk to a majority
Sure.
of them. That's the overall thing,
Yeah.
sense of.
Are you seeing that there's more recruiting of like teenagers and kids going on? Has that been a trend?
Um, if you get, I guess, into the more urban areas, there are, with the kind of just takeover style, just run in and grab stuff.
Mm, okay.
Uh, a lot of uh, higher end, like clothing. Some of it's category based. It seems like clothing, um, different things like that. A lot of younger people, things that they're more interested in. But your basic, like, standard over the counter um, meds, tools, things like that, all ages. And a lot of the ones I've seen, especially as you get a little more rural areas, are middle aged, older, stuff like that. Uh, so
Hmm.
still pretty broad range. There are more younger people than I think there used to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's do they get to keep some of the stuff that they steal, and that's why, like you mentioned, clothing. I'm picturing like a Lululemon or a Nike store or something like that. Would that be
Yeah,
part
they do.
of it?
Tennis shoes, things like
Yeah,
that. Grabbing when they can, grabbing shoes or some of the designer brands at the like higher end department stores. They go in, grab a handful of that stuff, run out. They're
hmm,
high ticket and have a lot of street cred, I guess, as you wear a really nice name brand something. So they keep
yeah,
it and they sell some, they make more money.
hmm,
Whereas the drug addict that might be homeless or not as in a good living situation doesn't care as much to be wearing a Louis Vuitton
right.
or some of those type of things.
Yeah, yeah. So in your conversations with these folks, you mentioned jurisdictions and that they're aware of that. Are they aware of the technology? Like when they come in and they grab a stack of jeans, do they even notice that there might be RFID tags on those or any kind of, or camera
They're
tech? Do they see it?
they do notice about the cameras. That's a big one,
Mm,
and they're starting to learn about how facial recognition works and stuff.
yeah.
There's a lot of information on TikTok and social medias about how to try to avoid that. Majority of them wear hats, and they'll throw a mask on or something like that. The COVID mask is still carrying into today,
Yeah.
and that I mean, and that helps them in a lot of cases, or at least they think it does. And they're learning more. It seems like not a lot of them talk about like the RFID tag specifically. They're all used to the standard like spider wraps, alpha keepers boxes, things like that. The
Hmm.
closed tags. A lot of people buy the things to remove them.
Okay.
Some people remove them in the store, but most of the time they'll walk out with it, and then they have the tools to remove them later.
Yeah, we'll get it off later. So I'm just going to use these two retailers as an example. This is hypothetically, but let's say there's a Lowe's on one side of town and a Home Depot on the other side of town, and they're not too far apart. What would make an offender choose one store over another?
I've had that conversation specifically, like with those two, and I won't call out one or the other.
It's hypothetical. We're
But
not
yeah,
saying.
hypothetical. But when I've asked that very specifically because for a little while I was doing a lot of tools. That
Yeah.
was a popular and an easy thing to investigate, and
Hmm.
so the employee presence, whether it
Hmm. Okay.
was how things were locked up. They one easy thing is during the holidays they have stack out bundles of like the toolkits, um,
Hmm.
where typically they were locked up on the shelf in the cages. Within the holidays they would have stack outs. They might have like a big spider wrap or one of the cable things around it, but it was ones they could pick up. And so they would say, whatever is the easiest grab for them to be able to walk out. Both of them, they know that they have policies about apprehensions. They learn just from experience, from people talking, things like that, that
Hmm.
they learn the people's policies. They know that, this store can't chase me into the parking lot. This store can't even approach me in the store. One particular person found out that I talked to found out that and I don't remember if it was Lowe's or Home Depot, but one of those had the same code on their lock for all the cages and the same code in actually a couple different stores just in one city over. Uh,
Ouch.
and he watched an employee open it, tried the code, it worked. He went to another cage, tried the code, and it worked. And then he told everybody. So
Yeah. Sometimes, we keep talking about all this AI and the tech and the RFID. Sometimes it's just as simple as a code. Like that is so disheartening.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think that's where I love AI as a tool, and
Hmm.
it's great, and it is amazing at how far it's progressed and where it's going. But the way that it functions, it's hard to replace a conversation like that with the person that's actually in the store. The
Right.
person that at your store steals the stuff. It's hard to replace that because an AI, it might recommend, well, you should change your codes or things, but hearing it from the person
Hmm.
and learning that kind of stuff. The AI learning models generally don't get to talk to drug addicts, so it's
No.
not learning from them as much as it just learns from professionals or people that they hire to put in their input. But you don't have a lot of self-admitted drug or crackheads on there,
Mhm.
you know on AI training it.
Yeah. And I mean, this will be a common theme throughout our conversation, but backing up to don't just cut that booster loose after, or just send him off to jail or put him in the cruiser and let him go. There needs to be a conversation so you can learn that kind of stuff. Like if you don't talk to them, you would never know that they were just using that same code over and over again.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things is that drives me crazy. And I've done it in the past, and I've seen people do it countless times. But it's just the quick, yeah, I caught this shoplifter. Here you go. I'm going to write you a ticket or take out a summons later, and be on your way. And then you knock
Mhm.
out your internal report and call it done with nothing, no questions, no anything at all. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen one of our biggest shopper level boosters got caught at a store, and he had thousands and thousands. I mean, I think it was just a booster level, close to 10 grand of product in his car in the parking lot. Uh,
Wow.
and nobody went out there to even look, talk about it, or anything. Um,
Mm-mm.
the police, when they showed up, they didn't go out there. They didn't do it their part on any of that, and the AP person didn't. And so he got his charged. I think they wrote him a ticket for misdemeanor shoplifting for $500 worth of stuff that he had at that time.
Hmm.
So, and he got to continue on. He took his ticket and went on shopping.
Yeah. No, it really, every time you catch somebody, even if it's somebody who just took a pair of socks from a store, it's a golden opportunity to have a conversation. They may know employees who are involved in this. It could be, like you said, conspiracy. I mean, you're just really missing the boat if you don't sit down and have that conversation. And to your earlier point too, like you can't judge people, have an open mind. This might look like a crackhead, but they may have tons of information and you're just missing it if you don't take that time to talk to them.
Yeah, and it's not anything that's difficult.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
heard.
hard to do. One of the biggest things that I want to tell everybody to do is find a contact information, a reliable way to get in contact with this person, because
Mm,
when
good
they
idea.
leave, they may go to another store, may say, hey, we just had this person leave here, or law enforcement, when you report it, they may be like, oh, we've been trying to find them. Having some sort of way to get in touch with them. A lot of people, they might not have a way, or they don't want to tell you, but if it's possible to find out email address, phone number, their mama's address, something,
Hmm. Yeah, I'm sure there's some, even if they're homeless, right? There's somebody who knows how to get a hold of them. The shelter that they like to go to, there's some way.
Well, a
Yeah.
lot of them receive benefits of some sort, whether it be like SNAP benefits or
Hmm.
something. They're going to get something in the mail. They're going to be some way that somebody can give them. That's the way I frame it is, if I wanted to mail you a check, where would I? If I wanted to find you and give you money, how would I do that? They
Yeah,
can find a way for that.
for sure. For sure they can. So let's go up the ladder a little bit. And you mentioned that sort of like second level or the person who's the driver. Is that normally like a friend or a family member of the fence? Like how are they in the mix?
It's been both. A
Okay.
lot of times it is, friend, family member. Other times it's just somebody that has been stealing, and a lot of
Has a
times
card.
they know the fence, and they want to kind of minimize their risk. And so I don't want to say necessarily, but a lot of times they're a little bit smarter. Um,
Okay.
they'll be the one that kind of maps out where they go, and pick the places and things, and then they'll send in somebody.
Okay.
They'll pick, sometimes they have drugs, and they'll offer them to the person, you do this, or they'll give them a cut of what they make that day. um,
Mhm.
they they are a lot of times, depending on the way the investigation goes, they do minimize their risk. If people don't take the extra steps, either on the AP or the law enforcement side, and they don't bother to look in the parking lot and see that that person got out of a passenger side of the car or
Hmm.
something, they drive off. They'll abandon that person in a heartbeat. They might bail them out of jail later, but
Yeah,
when it comes down to they see the police pull in the parking lot, they jet.
they're out.
Yeah, so they a lot of times they're the I guess what they consider the brains of the operation. So they'll drive them
Mm.
around, go pick whatever route, send their person in to do the riskier part, and just send them in, steal. They'll get back in the car and they'll take off and go to the next place.
All right. So how about the actual fence? Is it, I think the days of the flea market, those are probably still around, but where are they mostly? Is it mostly gift cards? Where are they fencing this product?
So with the first level fence, seen a lot of those people do have some sort of criminal history. Uh, they're not innocent or really ignorant to the whole operation. A lot of them have been shoplifters themselves, things like that. But
Mhm.
again, I think kind of the higher up they go in the chain, the smarter you get. So they're a little more business savvy. Um, they know items that resell. A lot of them do e-commerce platforms. Um, so they know what will sell, how to be able to sell to that
Is that
particular
typically
platform.
is that like a Craigslist situation, or where are their popular e-commerce?
So Facebook Marketplace is
Oh,
one of the
okay.
biggest ones that we see. It's kind of the I would consider more of a modern flea market.
Mm.
Is the marketplace? There's that eBay, Amazon. There's the first fences. A lot of times will bulk sell to somebody else that does more like Amazon and eBay. Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace is easy.
Yeah.
All you have to have is an account. Doesn't even have to be a real person. You can just make one of the fake person and start selling stuff. You can ship stuff. You can do in person meetings, things like that. The first level fence doesn't mind meeting with all of their drug addicts. So they're somebody that has interacted with them, know them. They go out and recruit them. Um, I've talked to the fences that literally said they've seen people, homeless people or people they knew that looked what they say looked like they were on drugs, and they just walk up and like, hey, I'll pay you if you go in these stores and steal stuff for me.
Wow.
They're sometimes the first level fence is a lot more organized than what I originally thought. Uh,
Mm.
Going into their houses and things and doing search warrants or and talking to them. Some of them run it like a full blown. I mean, it's a business to them. They have ledgers. They have uh,
Mhm.
a lot. Majority of all of them have a shopping list. So when you talk to the boosters, that's another thing to go back when you're interviewing boosters. Ask them about the shopping list. A lot of them will
Right.
have it on them. They print it out or handwritten list of what to steal.
Wow.
So the first level fence has a shopping list. They have kind of an ongoing list of what they pay for what. If it's over the counter medicines, the different counts, the different brands. If it's tools, they know the percentages that they're going to give for items, what they can sell it for. A lot of them keep inventory. I mean, they know maybe not exactly, but they know what they have. I mean, I've seen them that uh, categorize every piece of inventory they bring. They write
Mhm.
it down, put it in a spreadsheet, things like that. So
Wow.
it's pretty impressive for them.
Yeah. So the cases that you were involved with, Eddie, did you ever get to that top level fence that was working internationally? I know that's a lot of HSI cases recently that I've seen have had that international element to them.
Yes. So the Kings Mountain one specifically was a good one that we definitely reached that. The next level fence up from that first one that was dealing with everybody. Um,
Hmm.
he actually had a few first level fences selling him bulk product. He was getting, I know from the one fence that ultimately got convicted, got charged and convicted. Uh, he was the next level fence was buying just from him anywhere from 2 to 5 boxes, they would call it, and each box was um, anywhere up to $5,000 worth of product per week that
Wow.
he was buying. So that first guy, he had a lot of shoppers for him. I actually got to go and be one of them. I rode around with the boosters, um, as they stole stuff, and then we took it to that guy and sold it. So I got to see kind of his operation from the inside. Uh,
Wow.
but the
So were
next,
all those boosters that you were riding with, did they know who you were?
some of them did.
Oh, wow.
Others did not. Just
That's
to getting
crazy.
kind of introduced into them is generally kind of how it'd be, just to have some sort of credibility.
Okay.
But the second fence, I mean, he was no criminal history. Had actually been through law enforcement training. Super smart. That particular guy um, ended up, I would say, being a consultant for us. I mean, he explained all kinds of eBay scams that he was doing that I don't want to
Mm,
tell because it's still susceptible to it, but they've not completely fixed it. But he was able to scam eBay out of tens of $1,000s just on transactions, essentially.
wow.
Um, and I mean, he had a warehouse, he had a commercial office. Um, he had all kinds of, I mean, he had like the actual QuickBooks software type things. I mean, he was running a legitimate business, with stolen goods, and he was shipping internationally. He did a lot of Amazon, eBay, but then he had other wholesale buyers that was, I guess, kind of the next up. He shipped. He was located in Cleveland County in North Carolina, and he was shipping to California, to Florida, to some
Okay.
other bigger places. Um, you know, the farther you move up, the more separated you are from the theft, so it gets a little harder. Uh,
Hmm.
Conversations with him is, he knew it was stolen. He's like, deep down, I knew it was stolen, but I did try to convince myself that it wasn't. He's like, he did.
Hmm.
A lot of people commingle legitimate fund or legitimate products into it, pallet sales like RTVs, things like that. Um,
Okay.
so they try to legitimize their business somewhat. They commingle that in there, and then just try to justify it to themselves that
Yeah.
they're doing. And of course, they want to get out of it, and not deal at some point, but I know for him and for others, I mean, I was blown away when I saw how much money. I knew there's a lot of money, but for one person to be making the lowest deposit that I've seen for at least 18 months of bank records was about 50,000 in a month, uh,
Wow.
just from, I think, Amazon. That didn't count eBay or his bulk sales, things like that.
Yeah.
So
In your conversations with him, did he ever talk with you? I'm just curious, like what turned him to the dark side? Like, was there a point in time when he was like something that was like the tipping point for him, or was it just sort of this natural?
yeah, so he started out trying to be a legitimate business. Uh,
Okay.
Buying the pallets, reselling, like I said, super entrepreneur. I mean, great business guy. Um,
Hmm.
and he said he just had somebody that he knew bring him a box full of stuff really cheap. And
Yeah.
he didn't ask any questions. He just took it. And he said, like, he thought it seemed sketchy, but, maybe
Hmm.
not. And then as time progressed, it was made very evident that, it was stolen. He talked about it. And then he was like, once he's already done it, he's already in it and doing it. And then he just like, well, if you're getting product, how about get this product? I can sell it much easier, or this
Wow.
product. And that's kind of how the shopping list flows down is through that. So
Yeah.
it
That's
is
crazy. Yeah. It's a slippery slope doing that.
that's
Right.
that's what he said. He's like, it started with just that little bit, and then it turned into just boxes and boxes and boxes. I mean, like I said, he had a warehouse, Halle, with just shelves lined. I mean, I forget. I mean, it was a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah. So take all of your, all of your experiences, and I know that it's kind of with your new business that you're into, sort of the angle that you're taking, but how does all the things that you've learned help those retailers build cases or mitigate risks from happening in the first place? What's your perspective on that?
So I just offering a different perspective
Mhm.
for for me and my business, having worked on the law enforcement side of it and done those, I know what law enforcement are looking for. But I know a lot of I've worked with a lot of retailers that's done it for a long time, and they're great people, super smart, but a lot of times they still miss the mark on, you know, what's needed. Um,
Right.
and a lot of it's different, local level, the state level, on the federal level. I would have to write reports if it was going to, a local PD one way. Obviously, federal prosecutors want reports a completely different way, structured different, the files that they get different. Um, so bringing the knowing what different people are looking for, knowing the questions that'll be asked, the kind of the elements of specific crimes, and being able to kind of liaison between all of that. I do have a lot of still connections in law enforcement across from state, local, federal, across the country. Um, I've worked out of the Charlotte HSI office has been huge. They've been a big driver in some of the. I know they had like Operation Bowling Point with them a while back and stuff. And
Mhm.
there's it's great agents. One particular guy, Willie Carswell, out of the Charlotte office, one of the best ORC and retail theft people that I've ever worked with. Um, One of the only federal HSI's been one of the only agencies that's really I've worked with that's been dedicated to that. So they've been really great to work with. And him in particular, like I said, he's just been really passionate about it too. Been a great asset to the team around this area. Um, but I think that again with me and then my business specifically is you don't get a lot of aspect or the uh, perspective from the boosters or the offender side. So being able to marry that booster side with the retail and the law enforcement, kind of to be able to build all those together.
Mhm.
Because I've done things for risk assessment for just something as simple as I'll take a couple boosters and we'll ride by a store. We'll walk in a
Mhm.
store and they'll just, they'll plainly say, well, this store is right next to the highway. There's no cameras. There's nothing on this side at all. And then we walk into the store and we walk around for a few minutes and they're like, nobody's even looked at me. So I
Right.
would grab this whole shelf right here and run out the door and get in my truck and drive off, and I'm at the highway. Something as simple as that, and or the position of things. I've taken them into a store, and they're like, "Well, they put this product right here, right in front of the door, and we love these, and there's nothing between that and the door, so I would just grab it and go." And then so tell the retailers, "Hey, this is what they're looking at," and so that particular store is able to reposition something. So
Right. I love it. I know you have a lot of great information and knowledge that you can share. And maybe sometime you can recruit one of your boosters to be on my podcast. That'd be really interesting.
yeah,
Um,
I actually talked about that with one of them, and I had one that was one or two that was super excited. They were like they really wanted to. So that, like I said, whenever you treat them like a consultant, they want to tell it all. So I've got some that are not not strung out. Um,
yeah, that'd be awesome. So maybe part two, we could talk about that. But
yeah.
so Eddie, we're going to wrap it up, but how can people reach you if they wanted to tap into your knowledge a little bit more?
So Retail Risk Solutions is the company. Have a website, retailrisksolutions.com, or on LinkedIn, you can look me up or the business. And everybody feel free to send a message, reach out. We'll do some, I do case file prep analysis, just a wide array of a little bit of everything. So
Awesome. I love it. And good luck to you in your new endeavors. And let's do follow up and let's see if we can get a booster on here. I think that'd be great.
absolutely. Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Have a good day, Eddie.
All right, you too.